In May 1982, Ferrari finished first and second at the San Marino Grand Prix, a home victory, and it should have been a perfect result. Instead, it became one of the most controversial races in Formula One, based on a pit board with a single word. This is the story of the Ferrari controversy of the 1982 San Marino Grand Prix. Ferrari had a particular philosophy when it came to its drivers. According to Marco Piccinini, Ferrari's sporting director at the time, Ferrari never had a number one or a number two. Mr. Ferrari used to say the number one is chosen the Sunday evening after the race, but the next race is a new story. However, when Ferrari cars ran first and second, with no competition behind them, there was often an expectation that the drivers would protect the result. Jody Scheckter described how this worked during his time with Ferrari. After things settled down in the races, whoever was in front stayed in front. If we were 1 and 2 ahead of everybody else, we had to stay in our positions. This information will later become important to what happened at Imola. In 1982, Ferrari had produced a car capable of winning races. The Ferrari 126C2 was a powerful turbocharged machine and one of the fastest cars on the grid. Driving it were two very different drivers. Gilles Villeneuve had been racing for Ferrari since 1977 and had become one of the team's most admired drivers. Enzo Ferrari described him as a small, fiery driver who drove instinctively. His teammate Didier Pironi had joined Ferrari in 1981 after previously racing for Ligier. Where Villeneuve was often seen as instinctive and emotional behind the wheel, Pironi was known for a more analytical and calculated approach. Together, they were considered one of the strongest driver lineups in Formula One. The San Marino Grand Prix took place during an unusual weekend for Formula One. At the time, the sport was divided by a political conflict between teams and the governing body called the FISA-FOCA War. Several teams, including Brabham, McLaren and Williams, boycotted the race. As a result, only 7 teams entered the event. Prost led the championship with 18 points, followed by Lauda with 12, and then Rosberg and Watson with 8. Ferrari was still looking for their first victory. With so few runners, some at the time suggested that the Renault and Ferrari drivers discuss race strategy before the race. Pironi had a difficult start to the weekend. A tyre failure caused him to crash and would need to use the spare car for the rest of the weekend. The spare car was also called the mule car because it was typically less developed and polished than the main race cars. As a result, he qualified in 4th place, over 2 seconds down on pole position and nearly 1.5 seconds off his teammate. The race started with Arnoux, Villeneuve, Pironi and Prost streaking off into the distance. As the race went on, both Prost and Arnoux retired with mechanical problems. This left the two Ferraris comfortably leading the race, Villeneuve leading Pironi unchallenged.
And Villeneuve made a mistake, he just went wide and Pironi nipped through.
Absolutely together and Villeneuve leads again. Another change in the lead and is on lap 49.
With no immediate pressure from behind, Ferrari began showing a message from the pit wall. Villeneuve interpreted this instruction as, "You get a slow sign and that means hold position. That has been the case ever since I've been there." Pironi interpreted the signal differently. The board said slow down, but it did not say that we should stop racing. In the closing stages of the race, the two Ferraris exchanged the lead several times. But on the final lap, Pironi overtook once more.
Fantastic stuff. They've changed places on 2 laps running and Pironi now, all he has to do now is keep it pointing the right way.
And went on to win the race. Ferrari finished first and second. Pironi celebrated his victory, the first for Ferrari so far, and on home soil. He and 3rd place driver Alboreto took part in the victory parade, but Villeneuve was nowhere to be seen. Villeneuve was irate and had to be convinced to go to the podium, but his face said it all. After the race, Villeneuve gave a lengthy interview to Autosport and spoke openly about the race. "I left because otherwise I would have said some bad things. He was there looking like the hero who won the race, and I looked like the spoiled bastard who sulked. I haven't said a word to him, and I'm not going to again, ever. I've declared war. I'll do my own thing in future. It's war. Absolutely war." He spoke of his time with Scheckter in 1979, describing how he played his part. "I know all about team orders at Ferrari.
I think Renault's in trouble. He seems to have slowed down. He's not producing the power. Well, healthiness will play his day. You think he's going fast?
As soon as the Renault was out, I relaxed, slowed the pace. The only thing in my head was making the fuel last. I made a mistake coming out of a corner and he passed me. I wasn't worried, I figured he would lead for a couple of laps then give it back. Maybe he wanted to put on a show for the public, impress the fans. People seemed to think that we had the battle of our lives, Jesus Christ. But ahead of him most of the race, qualified a second and a half quicker than him. I think I proved that in equal cars, if I want someone to stay behind me, well, I think he stays behind. Didier responded saying, I understand his bitterness. Back home I watched several times the running of this race and everything seems normal. To say that I made a few dangerous attacks, that I did not meet certain guidelines, I did not. Gilles has no reason to hate me, except that I finished ahead of him. Some of the journalists covering the race had soft spots for Gilles and happened to be confidants from time to time. The story was practically writing itself, having a villain who stole victory away from the beloved hero. A journalist called Christopher Hilton wrote an official version of the events titled, A Man Betrayed. He wrote, in his innocence, Villeneuve imagined that, with only 7 cars circulating, Pironi had decided to put on a show for the crowd. They'd duel, the crowd would love it, but Pironi would pull over and let Villeneuve enter the lead, obeying the tradition. It never crossed Villeneuve's thinking that Pironi would do anything else. Words such as innocence and phrases like obeying tradition and it never crossed Villeneuve's thinking are examples of portraying the good guy and bad guy narrative in the mainstream press. Both drivers met with Enzo Ferrari separately. Ferrari's chief mechanic Paolo Scaramelli said, I remember his meeting with the old man after Imola. Ferrari listened to him and finally said, you behave very well, everything is going perfectly, thank you and goodbye. That same day the old man also wanted to meet Pironi. Same scene, he listens to him, gets him to talk and says, you behave very well in Imola, everything is going perfectly, thank you and goodbye. 2 weeks later, Formula One travelled to Belgium for the Grand Prix at Zolder. According to Scaramelli, Villeneuve remained focused on Pironi's lap times during qualifying. Gilles would do his lap, come back in, never leaving the cockpit. He'd say to me, just let me know Pironi's time. If the Frenchman did better than him, Villeneuve would immediately get back on track. During qualifying, Villeneuve was attempting to improve his lap time. While approaching the slower car of Jochen Mass, the 2 cars collided at high speed. Villeneuve's Ferrari was launched into the air and destroyed. He sadly later died from his injuries. The whole paddock was in shock. Villeneuve was considered one of the best drivers of his time, but his luck had run out. That evening, Scaramelli met with Enzo Ferrari at the track. Ferrari was sitting behind the desk. He said to me, now tell me what happened on Saturday at Zolder, without omitting a single detail. It was then that I saw him, for the first time in front of me as I spoke. Ferrari was crying. Silently, he was crying. It was the 2 of us. He wasn't faking it, he was crying. Simply put, Villeneuve was unique, even for him. Pironi continued the 1982 season and achieved several strong results. By mid-season, he was leading the Drivers' Championship. However, during qualifying for the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, he was involved in a major crash in heavy rain after colliding with another car. The accident caused severe leg injuries and ended his Formula One career. As the years went by, the San Marino race was still talked about and Pironi was considered the villain by many. But also as the years went by, more people gave more insight as to what happened that weekend. In 1986, Pironi gave an interview saying, I've never said this before, but we had a meeting before the race. Arnoux, Prost, Gilles and me in my motorhome. We agreed to make a spectacle for the first part of the race so long as our positions on the lap after half distance were the same as on the grid. We started the real race at half distance, so I had plenty of fuel. The team didn't know that. Piccinini and Larousse didn't know. Only the mechanics knew, but Prost and Arnoux, they will tell you the same. These would be the last words from Pironi on the matter, as later that year he would pass away in an unfortunate powerboat crash. Alain de Laplante commented about his friend Gilles. Sure, he was pissed, but more with management than Pironi. He thought Ferrari should have handled the situation way better than they did. Was he obsessing over Pironi? You've got to be joking. All he could talk about was this goddamn new helicopter. He never shut up about it. This is a moment of Gilles rarely, if ever, described during those post-Imola weeks. It was one that hardly fit the mainstream media narrative of betrayal and despair. All this Ferrari Civil War stuff made good copy. The media boys were just trying to stir things up. I know, because I saw them doing it. Harvey Postlethwaite, the co-designer of the 126C2, believed the drama following San Marino was blown out of proportion by the press. Villeneuve was really upset because he felt he should have been handed the race on a plate. They were competitive and neither of them could win. In 2002, Marco Piccinini said, "We know exactly what happened, but it didn't correspond with the general belief. It was complicated by the private agreement between the drivers. They had an agreement, but it wasn't so detailed that it said what would happen if one of them made a mistake. It was a genuine misunderstanding triggered by Gilles making a mistake. He went off the circuit slightly and Didier passed. The sign was hung out because we were 1 and 2, not because we favoured one driver over the other. We didn't favour either driver because it was an early stage of the championship. We just wanted to maintain 1-2. Some years later, Ferrari's chief mechanic Paolo Scaramelli said, "Before the start, things were crystal clear, definite. If the Renaults broke down or fell behind, whoever of our 2 drivers was ahead would win, meaning his teammate couldn't and shouldn't attack him. Gilles was ahead, but Pironi didn't respect the agreement. We'll never know why, he never explained his attitude, but that's how it went." Over time, the story of Imola in 1982 became more complicated. Different people gave different accounts of what had been agreed, what had been understood, and what had actually happened on track. Some described it as a clear breach of an agreement, others as a misunderstanding between 2 drivers interpreting the same instruction in different ways. And some believe the events themselves were shaped by the way they were reported. What happened during those final laps at Imola has remained open to interpretation ever since. More than 40 years later, the question still remains: is it a broken agreement or a misunderstanding?